Welcome everyone to day 4. So day 4, second last day of this 5-day hip opening challenge. What you'll need is definitely something to cushion yourself. So blankets, I actually have 2 on top of each other here. You can also use a thick pillow if you have a meditation cushion, that would be ideal. We'll definitely need 2 for the second pose. So 2 thick blankets or 2 couch pillows or 2 cushions of sorts. And then you might need some kind of elevation. So we'll start with the elevation in the first pose and we'll work our way down from there. You can also use a bolster for this one as well. So let's get started. We're going to come in front of our blocks. So I'm just going to show you sideways here and take the left leg forward and then cross your legs. So like you're sitting in a chair and you're crossing your left leg in front of the right. Okay. I'm going to show you that again from the front here. So my left leg is going to come forward and cross over my right leg. And then I'm going to walk myself back to sit on the blocks. I'm going to hug my feet into my side and I'm going to ensure that my knees are stacked on top of each other. So that's step 1 to getting into this pose. And we'll start the timer now. So finding that cross, finding where you can sit here. So we're medially rotating our legs, drawing them in through center, and then draw the feet back. Now, if you're on 2 blocks, and you're like, I'm a little high, I've got a lot more room. Feel free to remove a block, place it off to the side, and sit down on the single block. Now, again, you might say, I'm actually quite comfortable here. There's no pain or pinching. I think I can go a little farther. Then remove that bottom block and allow your sits bones to come to the mat right between your heels and draw those feet back. So we're finding ourselves fully down on the mat. Knees are on top of each other. Hands come to the knees. Sit up nice and tall. So stay right where you are. I'm going to flip to the side so you can see this from a side perspective. So my left knee is on top of my right, and I'm drawing my feet back on the side. I'm sitting up nice and tall, long through the spine. So we're getting that medial, that internal movement and direction, that internal direction, the medial rotation of the legs. This is our eagle leg pose. I'm just going to shift. You stay right where you are. This is our eagle leg pose, and it's also the base of our cow face pose. So you might be familiar when you add the arms and you find your eagle arms. Additionally, for the cow face pose, you join hands behind you, lifting up through the head. And so this creates the cow face. Your torso is the snout, your feet are the ears. What are we doing now with our legs? Because we're starting to feel this into our ankles. Ankles often come along for the ride with our hip poses. Right now, we're working with that left leg. So we're getting into the abductors. We're starting to rotate them in. And at the back here, we're working into our glutes. You can start to bring yourself forward now. So start to fold forward over the legs. And we'll stay here for the rest of the pose. You'll notice this suddenly becomes a lot more intense. So what we're doing is we're aiming to target the deep 6. So there's a set of 6 muscles below the gluteus maximus. So they're deep in relation to where that glute muscle is. And we're trying to really target those. So if you poke around at the back, you'll feel your femoral head. So that bony part, it's called the greater trochanter. And that's actually where the deep 6 are starting to attach. And then they go deep down under the glute. So allow yourself to again fold forward and stay right where you are. I'm just going to shift the perspective again so you can see this from a slightly different angle. So either on the blocks, off the blocks, we're starting to pull those feet back to the side and lean the torso forward over the legs. Again, you might be feeling this in your IT band, in the tensor fascia latae at the top. We're starting to stretch out and working into that fascia. So again, we work through our principles, and let's start with that breath to allow ourselves to relax. So that 4-8 breath in through the nose for 4, out through the mouth for 8. In through the nose for 4, out through the mouth for 8. Find that ocean or that ha-like sound. So similar to our ocean breath, but we're allowing the exhale to come through the mouth this time. The more you lean forward, the more you're going to feel this pose back up towards the top, right into your hip. But again, try not to be in a state of pain. And if you are in pain or feel any targeted pinching, definitely back out a little bit. So come up a little higher, maybe even return on to your block. In through the nose for 4, out through the mouth for 8. In for 4, out for 8. Again, in for 4, out for 8. In and out for 8. Last cycle here, in through the nose, out for 8. And slowly, when your next inhale comes, lift yourself up, allow your hands to come behind you and unwind your legs carefully and slowly. Instead of a child's pose this time, we're going to windshield walker side to side. And one more time, each side, the left and the right. Then bring yourself back through center. Let's come forward again to our tabletop position. And this time we're going to take the right leg forward in front of the left and cross it over. So if you're sitting in a chair, you're crossing that right leg over the left. So to face you again, I'm going to take that right leg forward, cross it over the left, allow the knees to be together, and then start to part my feet just enough that I can sink my hips down onto the blocks or right onto my cushion, onto my mat. And then those feet, I'm going to squish my knees together. So I'm pressing that right leg to the left leg to the right. This can be pretty intense, so do be mindful and aware of the sensations of your body speaking to you in this pose. And we're starting here. So find length again through the spine, sitting up nice and tall. You can bring your hands to your knees to find that distance. Again, just stay right where you are, just showing you from the side here. So the feet are hugging back, the knees are in line. Find length through the spine, nice and tall. Again, you might start immediately feeling sensation on the external and the lateral side of your legs, of your hips. That's okay. A little sensation, a little discomfort is perfectly all right. And so we use our breath again to allow ourselves to relax. So going over those principles again of these poses of what we're aiming to do here, working for flexibility, is our muscles and fascia stretch best when fully relaxed. That's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is we use our breath to relax. So again, we're using that 4 by 8 breath because an exhale centric breathing allows us to relax and tap into our parasympathetic nervous system that rest and digest. We have a myostatic reflex, a stretch reflex, where we want to tense up and fight it, but our breath allows us to stay in that state of calmness and arguably fight against that stretch reflex. And start to bring ourselves forward now. So find that fold, really allow this to sink, feel the shift down towards the deep six, hopefully underneath the glutes. You might feel this towards the glutes on the external, more external side of the muscular system on our back hips. And so now we go again to that breath. So in for 4. Out for 8. In for 4. Out for 8. In for 4. Out for 8. And again, that third principle then is time under passive tension. So we hold the pose in this particular hip challenge for about 5 minutes. And maybe that timing is slightly different for you. That's okay. But it's the idea of that uninterrupted hold, the uninterrupted hold. So if you're looking for progress, allowing consistency of an uninterrupted hold while you target a specific area is what's going to really help guide you towards flexibility. Now my head is lifted because I'm speaking to you, but feel free to round fully down, softening the head all the way towards the knee to really get in deeply there. So again, time under passive tension, incrementally increasing your time in the pose over the course of your practice. Find that breath back in through the nose. Exhale. In for 4. Out for 8. And again, let yourself fully round here. And you can support your forehead with blocks if you need to. We're almost there. In for 4. Out for 8. In for 4. Out for 8. Last breath cycle, in for 4. Out for 8. We're at that time, so slowly as you inhale, start to lift yourself up, bring your hands behind you, give yourself some support as you gently, very carefully unwind those legs. They're going to feel a bit tight here. Let's find some windshield washing side to side. Let the knees go over. Take this nice and slow. 3 times each side. Feel free to twist the spine. Squeeze that stretch if that feels nice. And 1 more time each side, over to the left. And then over to the right. Let's bring ourselves back through center and come onto our knees. So for this next pose, our unilateral pose, we'll place those blocks off to the side. We won't be needing them, but you will want your pillows. If you have 2 blankets, you'll definitely want to fold or roll them up to be nice and neat, thick pads for you. And then have them a good distance apart where you can bring your knees comfortably in between. Now with this pose as well, if you have a bolster, it's really nice to bring that in front of you. It's going to add some padding. If you do have those blocks, you are welcome to use those as well. So I'll just have them available and show you in a moment here. We're going to move the bolster so you can see what's happening. So to start, bring your hands forward. We're going to come onto all fours. Then bring your left knee onto one of your pads. Bring your right knee onto the other pad. Bring your big toes to touch. We're moving towards everyone's favorite pose. Maybe you've guessed it. So you might be able to part your knees a bit wider with the toes touching. So if that's the case, in this case I can. So I'm going to bring my padding a little bit farther apart. With those toes touching, find your position with a wide-legged pose here. Allow your hips to be in line with your knees, and then part the feet to go knee to ankle so the feet are right behind, in line with the knee going back towards whatever's behind you. Allow those legs to soften here. Now is where that bolster or the blocks might come in handy. Pull that in front of you and allow yourself to rest down onto it. And you can even bring your chest all the way down. Find some support there. If you don't have a bolster, you can bring a block forward, and maybe that block fits nicely underneath your forehead. So you soften the forehead down to the block, and the arms are supporting you on the mat. Now you stay right where you are. Timer has started. I'm just going to show you this from the side view here. So from the side view, as we're getting into it, what you really want to do is get those legs in line. So I'm going to find my positioning. Staying right where you are. The toes touch and then they're open to find your entry. And now you see here how my hips are in line with my knee. So I'm not really far forward and I'm not sinking back. I want to be right in line or as much as possible. And then I sink my chest down to the ground, keeping my hips in line with my knees. So I'm nice and long here and lined up. This is important because when you go forward, you start to lose the stretch. So it's an easy cheat, shall we say. You lose what we're targeting. And if you go farther back, your hips become in deeper flexion and you actually are a little bit more, there's more work involved, and your myotatic reflex, that stretch reflex, is really going to kick in two different areas. But when you're nicely in line, it allows for you to get that stretch on the internal side of your thigh, on those adductors on the inside. Find length through your spine and then allow your chest to sink a little more. So stay right where you are and turn back to face the camera, but again, keeping those hips and knees in line. If you have a mirror, you can use that. Just you'll have to kind of feel it out if you don't. Frog pose. This pose is a very intense pose. And it is 100% a pose where our stretch reflex, we talked about that just recently, our myotatic reflex comes and speaks loudly to us. We want to react. We feel very vulnerable in this position. It is an opening. Our reproductive organs are completely exposed. And so we want to close our legs. We want to protect ourselves. So naturally, we start to tense up even more. So it's really important to bring that 4-8 breath in here so we can relax, so we can find ourselves calmer, and we can allow our fascia to begin its stretch into its new position. Well, in this 5-day routine, we are targeting very specific areas of the hips. These are great exercises, and definitely encourage them in complement to your regular workout routine, whatever that may be. So don't do them just alone. They're really good to add, to complement with an E, the other practices in your body. Also through this week, we are establishing or re-establishing BROM, so what we call basic range of motion. So it is a way for us to be able to find more mobility. And essentially when we were kids, maybe 7 or 8 years old, like most, not all, but we had a basic range of motion. And we were much looser, freer. We could flex, move, shift, adjust, run, slide, all of those, skid, pivot really quickly. And so as we get older and our fascia becomes stiffer and we sit in office jobs and we don't move around as much, we start to lose that basic range of motion of our body, the BROM, so to speak, the BROM, B-R-O-M. And so when we target these specific areas and we work on opening, when we work with the fascia specifically, we are bringing ourselves back. We are re-stretching out, re-opening our fascia, reshaping it to allow for some of those ranges of motion that are no longer available to us. So classes like yin are very, very fascially specific. So if you like this challenge and you want to take this into a full hour class, I highly recommend a yin class, because in yin, you also do long holds, 3 to 5 minutes like this, and it specifically targets the fascia with long breaths. So there's my little plug for a yin class. Yin is a fantastic, incredible practice. And because you're in the long holds and you're in a classroom setting, you're not getting the teacher talking at you the whole time. It becomes a little mental battle as well. All right, checking on the time here. We're still good. Couple more breaths here. Let's start to tap into that 4-8 for the last little bit of this hold. Inhale through the nose for 4. Exhale through the mouth for 8. Inhale through the nose for 4. Exhale for 8. In for 4. Exhale for 8. One more breath in for 4. Allow yourself to soften the jaw. Relax here as much as you can, and exhale for 8. Make it count. On your next inhale, gently lift up to your hands. Really press into the hands. Take your body weight there. Bring the big toes to touch. It's important we release well. And then press into the hands to bring your right knee into the center. Bring your left knee into the center. Keep those toes together and sit back. Find your child's pose for 1. Let's bounce here for 2. And for 3. Sink those hips back. Bring yourself back up. Allow yourself to sit on your knees. Thank you so much for joining me for day